Welcome back to our class. Don't forget to subscribe if it is your first time to visit our channel. We are saying that genetics, when we talk about genetics, we are talking about what we call genes. Small sections of DNA, and these sections, they have a certain character they are controlling, is what we call genes. So the study of inheritance, the study of these genes is called genetics. Basically, in this topic, these are the things you need to cover. We're going to cover the following subtopics in this topic. First one is concepts of inheritance, the terminologies. You need to know the terminologies. Monohybrid crosses, crosses which involve one character, mono, one character. Sex determination, what is the percentage chance for you producing a girl or a boy? How do you determine the sex of a kid? Sex-linked inheritance, the characters which are linked to the sex. Blood grouping, which type of blood group, and then inheritance of blood group. Dihybrid crosses, when we talk about dihybrid crosses, we mean inheritance of two characters. Di means two. Genetic lineages or pedigree. These ones are tracing characters in your family. In most cases, in this case, you're going to be looking at the disorders which can be inherited by the family. So you have mutation. When you talk about mutation, it means change in a part of DNA. It could be the whole chromosome can change, or it can be just a small section of DNA changing. So we're going to look at the mutations. Genetic engineering. Genetic engineering, it means that you're trying to manipulate. So you try to manipulate with the genetics or with the genes of an organism. Then you have a paternity test. Here you're trying to do the testing of the parents, father, mother. If there is any subtopic you don't understand, then it means that you are still lacking, you are susceptible to lose marks because you don't know which part of genetics they are going to bring. You can bring any part from genetics. So you don't know exactly which part they're going to bring. And if you don't study that part, then it means that these marks which are allocated on genetics, you have lost some marks even before you go to the paper. However, by chance, you can find out that the part you don't know, it has not come, and then you can answer those which you know. But I don't encourage that. So let's look at the introduction. Father of genetics. When we talk about father of genetics, we are talking about Gold Mendel. He did a lot of work on inheritance, and he discovered a law which we call law of inheritance. He concluded a gene come in pairs, like when they are, for example, height is being controlled by two parts of genes. When we talk about genes come in pair, a character like, for example, height, size, skin color, they're being controlled by two kinds of genes. So they come in pairs and are inherited as distinct units. It means that one character is not interfering another character during inheritance. Each character is inherited differently, from one from the father and one from the mother. It means that each parent is supposed to give one part of the character. Remember, there are supposed to be two, so it means that the first part comes from the father, the second part comes from the mother. That's what he is saying. So let's look at some of the concepts of inheritance, meaning that the terminologies. So chromatin. When you talk about chromatin, it's a substance within a chromosome containing DNA and a protein. Basically, when you talk about a chromatin, chromatin is DNA. But in this case, this DNA is like threads. Yes, it is in coiled form. When it coils, then it forms what you call a chromatin. Then number two, you have what called chromosome. Now, when the chromatin condenses, when it shortens, when it becomes thick, it forms what you call chromosome. So chromatin and chromosomes, they are the same thing, but in different versions. So you can say water in ice form and in liquid form. So it's the same thing, but it's in different phases. So we are saying that thread-like structures of nucleic acids and are found in the nucleus carrying genetic information. So chromosomes are the thread-like, they are like threads crossing each other. And these chromosomes, they carry what called the genetic material. You look like your father because of the genes your father gave you. Then, if you look at this structure, look at this, you might think that this is noodles. Yeah, you think that these are noodles or spaghetti. Yes, but if you condense it, yes, so if you shorten it, you squeeze it, you condense, it forms what you call chromosomes. So when they cross, they look like this. So when you talk about chromosome and the chromatin network, they are the same, but in different phases. You see, you can see that what is here is almost what is here. Small ingredients just to make them to be in this shape are being added, just to make them to be chromosomes. But what they carry inside, the most important thing, what do they carry, is the same information as chromatin network. But they form chromosomes during cell division. What about genes? Chromatin network, chromosomes, genes. Genes are just small sections on the chromosome. So if you just break down the chromosome or the DNA, you form different portions. Those different portions, they form what called genes. And then you have, we are saying that this is a small portion of DNA coding or controlling a particular character, a particular protein. So it must be these characteristics you have. You are dark-skinned, you are light-skinned. What causes that? It is genes. And then when we talk about allele, alleles are genes. Alleles form chromosomes. Alleles form chromatin network. But chromatin network, if you look at chromatin network, you look at chromosomes, you look at genes, you look at alleles, they are the same things. All of them is the same thing, but at different scale. I'm gonna give you an example. When you talk about that, where do you stay? You say that I stay in South Africa. Where exactly? Then you tell me that I stay in Northwest. Where exactly in Northwest? You tell me that I stay in Rustenburg. Where exactly in Rustenburg? So you keep on reducing the scale. Chromosome, genes, alleles, they are the same but at different scales. So when you talk about allele, it's an alternative form of a gene. You can be tall or short. So an alternative form is called an allele. So we are saying that alternative form of a gene found at the same locus. Locus means the location of a gene, the place of a gene, the position of a gene is what we call a locus. We're gonna bring these things in terminologies. And then please don't forget to give a correct answer. So here is a chromosome. A chromosome is here, but you have different parts, different locations of these chromosomes. So these parts is what you call the alleles. So these alleles may be for height, for size, for color, for blood group. They are supposed to be found on the same position of the chromosome. This side and this side is the same thing. So we call them alleles. So are alternative forms of gene. Then we talk about a dominant allele. So because you have two forms of alleles, one can be dominant, another can be recessive. And both of them can be dominant, or both of them can be recessive. So when we talk about dominant, it means something which suppresses another thing. Yes. So we only say that an allele that is expressed in the phenotype when found in heterozygous state. When we talk about heterozygous, it means in different phases. One is like this, one is like this. So it means that this capital letter suppresses this. That's why I say that a dominant allele is that one which suppresses another allele. So this capital letter will suppress the small letter. Then what you call the recessive allele. This one can only express itself in absence of a dominant allele. So if this one is absent, then automatically this small t will also express itself. So we are saying that an allele that is masked in a phenotype when found in a heterozygous state. So it can only show itself in a homozygous. It is only expressed in a homozygous condition or homozygous state. Here is an example. You have homozygous dominant. It means that, you see, they are the same. Homo, I say that when you talk about homo, means the same. Zygous comes from what? Zygote. So it means that this zygote has the same kind of allele. Heterozygous, it means that this zygote has different kinds of alleles. So you have capital letter and small letter. And then homozygous, it's still the same type of alleles, but these alleles are recessive. So it means that it is the same kind. Homo, which means the same. So same, but they are supposed to be recessive. Then when you go to phenotype, when you talk about phenotype, it means the physical appearance of an organism. You are expressing an individual in terms of what you see. In most cases, when you bring a question concerning about a cross, they're going to ask you the phenotype. The first question, the first part you are supposed to write the phenotype. We get these answers from the question. Is it clear? So we are saying that physical appearance of an organism is determined by the genotype. For example, tall or short. You can be tall, you can see that a person is tall. You can be short, you can see that a person is short. You can be light-skinned, a person is light-skinned, you can see them. And then what about genotype? Here you are describing an organism in terms of what? In terms of genes, genotype. The gene type. Which kind of gene type do you have? So here is genetic composition of an organism. So you know you are tall, but which kind of tallness? You might be tall, but homozygous tall or heterozygous tall. You have an allele for shortness. You can be short, but you have an allele for tallness. You see two people who are short, they produce a tall kid. Two people who are dark-skinned, they produce a light-skinned kid. Two people who are light-skinned, they produce a dark-skinned kid. And then a guy can say that, yeah, this is not my kid. It's whose kid? All right. So here is another example. When we talk about this, describing this in terms of the genes is what called the genotype. Then also this is the genotype, and also this is what? Genotype. So I will say that this is homozygous dominant, this is heterozygous, and then this is homozygous recessive. So I'm describing these flowers in terms of genetic composition. So then when we talk about homozygous, I've been talking about this. Homo, which means the same zygous from the zygote. Then it means that this zygote has the same kind of genes. Two alleles, two identical alleles for a particular characteristic. Homo, same, can be homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. When we talk about hetero, when you say hetero, it means different. So the zygote has different kinds of alleles. For example, capital letter B and then small letter b. So they are different letters or different alleles. If you look at this picture, you'll find out that homozygous, you have this. They are found on the same locus, same location. This one and then this one, and then this one and this, you see. While if you look at heterozygous, same location but different letters. Same location but different letters. So this is homozygous recessive, this is homozygous dominant, and then this is heterozygous. For the case of heterozygous, we don't have recessive and dominant, just say heterozygous. A monohybrid cross is a cross which involves one character. You are right, it involves one character. But now you said pink and white. It still is fine. The answer was correct. But where is the character there? The character is color. That's the character. But this character has two alternative forms. The blue you talked about and the white you talked about. It's either blue or it's white. So those are the what called the alleles. So the character is the color of that individual you talked about. And then alleles are the different types of colors you have talked about.